structure or something.
Yes. Yeah, there is one. I'm gonna show it to you. Don't worry today. But yeah, I mean, it's anyways. If you wrote with what you know, it's fine. Of course, we're going to be reviewing it. Okay. By the
Okay.
way, did you manage to solve the problem with the reservations?
I don't know. I wanted to ask you because I don't know if I didn't get into the website actually. But we
Okay.
can see right now. I can do it right now. If
Yes, please.
we can do it on this time. Let me.
Because I talked to the coordinator and she didn't respond to me weirdly. She always responds to me, but nonetheless, she didn't do it this time. She just
I
read
think
it,
that
and I guess I don't know. I don't know. I hope she did it, but then she forgot to tell me. But she didn't respond to my messages.
yes. I don't know. It's like end of the month and everyone gets so crazy.
All right. Yes. Probably yes. Probably
On
it's true.
work, it happens to me too. So I think that is something else. I don't know. You finish the month and everything get.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yes.
I'm gonna check. Yes, also at work, I was thinking that it's gonna be a super calm day, and suddenly everything gets crazy, and I think it's
Yes.
the same thing with everything. I'm gonna check.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right. It's the same with most of the areas, right? With regard to jobs,
Yes,
especially for yours, right? Because you said you were in the biomedical area, so you are. I guess that people are requesting more informs and analysis at the end of the month.
yes. With regard to the reservation call, uh, is the same. It
Okay.
says that on Friday is not available, and
Mm-hmm.
Thursday it's just at night.
All
At
right. Wonderful.
the schedule I told you, it's,
Wonderful. Yes.
it's the
Yeah. As you
same.
can see, like it's like the reviewer didn't respond. I sent her, would you send me yesterday? But she didn't respond to me weirdly. I don't know why. Well,
Yeah, maybe she's having troubles too with something.
yes,
And
yes.
she can solve.
I hope so. Yes, and as I said, she's the one that knows how to solve this because I have no idea. I just teach, but I'm gonna be talking to her tomorrow morning. Maybe right now she's even more busy, but
Yeah.
yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna be, let's say, annoying her again so that she responds. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, we take this time to solve my doubts and everything.
Yes.
So I anyway take my time. So I think
Yeah.
there's no problem anyway. Because
Yeah, and
my
you have.
doubts are
Mhm.
not tell
Yes.
me.
And you have all the the 6 weeks of the duration of these classes to take the course. So although you're right now unable to do that, you're gonna be able to do that later. And you can even take the course, the personal course, that is to say this 12, 15-minute course, even when you finish the classes. So that is available for you basically for a long, long time. So
Yes.
you're gonna be able to do it. Okay, so don't worry about that.
Yes, we're gonna do it anyway. So I don't have a rush for that.
Wonderful.
So you're not bother her too.
I
But
want to. I
okay,
want to anyways.
I'm gonna
She needs to solve it quickly.
yeah. Yeah, because
Okay.
on the page it says call A6, A8, something like
All
that.
right.
So I pressed on the first option that it gave me. I'm gonna check if I
Yes.
in the second. No, every choice is the same. It shows
Okay.
me just some days. In
Sundays.
yes, show me the first is available,
Uh-huh.
the sixth. What were the photo that I sent to you?
All right. Thank you very much
And
then.
every
Okay.
single yes.
Mhm. Wonderful. But well, don't worry. That problem is going to be solved, let's say until tomorrow afternoon, I hope. So you're going to be able to reserve. Okay, Lucia, don't worry with
Okay,
that.
thank you.
No, my pleasure. Okay, so thank you very much, Raisa and Sergio, for joining us. Good evening to both of you. Okay, so let's start with today's class. Today, as we said yesterday, we have planned for today's class to practice a little bit for the fourth task of the speaking section. Okay, But also today we are going to be learning about the writing section. We're going to be moving on to a new section of the TOEFL exam, and you may be wondering why. The reason is because I want to use tomorrow and past tomorrow's class in order to practice and practice and practice for the speaking and the writing section, because the speaking and the writing section are not that much theoretical. They are very much practical. You need to know just a few things and to apply those few things into the responses by practicing, okay? So we are going to be practicing a little bit today for the fourth task of the speaking section, and then we're going to move on to the explanation, very short explanation of how to respond the first task of the writing section, so that tomorrow we can practice both for the writing section and also for the speaking section, okay? Well, let's start it. So the first thing we're going to do is that we are going to practice for the fourth task of the speaking section, as we said yesterday, okay? So let's get into that. Please get your piece of paper near you and also your pencil, as we discussed yesterday. And we are going to be working on that before we get into the writing section, okay? So please let us go there. We're going to work in one exercise, and then we're going to move on to the writing section, okay? Together. So let's go here, quiz mode. All right, wonderful. Answer here. Here we are. Okay. So let's get into this. Remember the speaking task number 4. It's simply going to ask you to listen to a reading passage, to a listening item. There's going to be a lecture on an academic topic, and then you're going to take notes on that and to offer a response summarizing the information they're mentioned in the lecture. Okay, so let's go and let's listen to this lecture on an academic topic, right? So please let us listen now.
Now listen to part of a lecture in a physics class.
Have any of you wondered how exactly planes are able to fly even though they're so much heavier than air? There are actually a couple of ways we can answer that. The first way, the easier way I think, is based on Newton's third law. That law says that when you push something, there is push back. So think about a wing. It's slanted up, right? The front of the wing is higher than the back. And as the plane moves through the air, that air goes under the wing. It gets pushed down by the slant. And when that air is pushed down, as we said, it has to push back. It pushes up. So there's a lot of air getting pushed down by that angle of the wing. And it's all pushing back up, pushing the plane into the air. The second answer has to do with something called Bernoulli's principle, which is about how fluids work. And when I say fluids, that includes gases too, not just liquids. This principle, it says that as the speed of a fluid, in this case air, as the speed of the air decreases, pressure increases. And also, as speed goes up, pressure goes down. So, in other words, the faster the air is moving, the less the pressure. The slower it is moving, the more the pressure. Get it? Speed and pressure are opposite. They're inversely correlated. We won't worry too much about how this works, but just know that because the way a wing is designed, air moves faster on the top of the wing than on the bottom of the wing. So that means the air on top, where the air is moving fast, has low pressure, and the air on the bottom of the wing, where the air is moving slowly, has high pressure. The difference in pressure pushes the wing upward into the sky.
Using points and examples from the lecture, summarize the 2 explanations of how planes are able to fly.
Okay, there you are. Wonderful. Now, please, let us all go to the 20 seconds of preparation, okay, for this response. And then you're going to respond one by one to this particular exercise. And at the end, I'm going to be offering some feedback to each of you, okay? Let's get into the preparation time now. There you are. Wonderful. 20 seconds are over. And now we are going to respond. Okay, so please, Lucia, you're going to be the first one responding. All right. So please enable your microphone and start responding to the question now.
Okay, in this lecture, we've been presented to the fascinating topic of the on a physics class about a physics law. And for the first example, the professor gave us the third law of Newton that says that a wing pushed by air can be go down because the air moves this wing to the back. So first air push down, and then the wing push it back, and that's how this law works. And second, he gave us example of how the fluid or gases can be part of this theory, and says that speed and pressure are opposite. So more speed, less pressure.
Wonderful. Very good, Lucia. Thank you very much. Okay, Raisa, you're going to continue, please. So enable your microphone, have it ready, and now please start responding to the question now.
Sorry, but I didn't hear very well.
Oh, you didn't hear? Okay. No, it's fine. It's fine, Raisa. Don't worry. It's okay. It's understandable. Okay, so you're going to be practicing in the other one. Don't worry. Okay. And Sergio got out, right? Okay, sadly. Well, then, okay, if Sergio is not coming back, let's start with the feedback. Okay. So, see, I think that I like your response very much. You know why? Because you managed to explain with simplicity a topic that was very complex. Okay. Now, don't get surprised because of the complexity of this particular exercise that we listen to right now, because this is, let's say, the most difficult one. The other ones are easier, all right? But anyways, your response was very good because you clarify the concept into a very simple manner, and that is exactly what you have to do, okay? For both of you and for the people who are watching the class later, the key strategy for you to follow in this particular part of the exam, because it's simply that the difficult and complex topics, try to simplify them and to make them easy by your own words. So, to say, explain them in the easiest manner you can, okay? It's not necessary to replicate a specific terminology to make it super complex, because of course we are not experts in this area, okay? So if you can explain it by your own words, making it simple, it's fine, all right? Of course, if you can augment some complexity, to use advanced grammar, to use this kind of scientific and academic expressions, that is going to be valued, of course, certainly, but it's not mandatory, okay? You can simplify things if you can, or if you want, okay? But very good, Lucia. I don't have any
Thank you,
objection.
because it was very difficult to get the theory, not even the words, but get something of physics. It's something very hard, but okay. I think that is gonna be that this kind of academic topics.
Certainly. And you're right, and notice that the reviewer will also take that into consideration, because he knows that both you and many of the people, and Raisa and many of the people who are taking the exam, are not experts in physics. So maybe this is a very complicated topic, because physics, mathematics are, for most people, very difficult topics, right? So he understands that. And if you manage to simplify all these theoretical aspects, which sound very complex, into simple words, it's wonderful, okay? So very good. Let's get into another one before we move on to the writing section, okay? Oh, no, okay, you know what? Let's get into the writing section. Oh, no, let's get into another practice so that Sergio comes back. I'm gonna talk to him right now in the group. And then we're going to say, well, excuse me, and then we are going to start with the writing section, okay? So please let us go to another lecture. And I think that you're going to notice this is going to be way easier, okay? Let's go. Let's listen to this one.
Now listen to part of a lecture in a sociology class.
Let's consider the way sociologists use the terms culture and society. A society is a distinct group of people. A sociologist would say that people in a society are defined by their social interactions and the culture they share. Meanwhile, culture itself can be defined as that society's shared knowledge, beliefs, and expectations. Often people think of a society as something really, well, big. And sure, that's true. An entire nation, for example, will generally have some common thread of culture that defines it. The most obvious example is that citizens of one region generally speak a common language. But Think about behavioral standards too, like what's considered polite or impolite. Whereas in one country you might be expected to take off your shoes as the guest in another's home, in other countries that might be considered strange. Cultural traits like that can extend over enormous populations. But a society can also be much smaller, much simpler. Take this class. Aren't we a society? We have social interactions with each other every week. And I think it's fair to say we have a culture of a sort too. Think back to what happened on the second day of class. Do you all remember? I'd missed my train and didn't have any way to let you all know that I'd be late. But in contrast to other classes, where students might have just headed home 15 minutes after the planned start time, each and every one of you waited the full 30 minutes it took me to arrive. That kind of set expectations, right? It laid the foundation for a culture of patience, something I think is still true of this particular group, this little society.
Using points and examples from the lecture, explain how a society can be a large group of people or a very small group.
There you are. Wonderful. So now that we have listened to this new lecture, in this case on on sociology, right? Let's get into the preparation time for this response, okay? Remember you have just 20 seconds, so please start preparing your responses now. There you are. Wonderful. So please rise up. You're going to start with this task. So please start responding to the question now.
Okay. In the lecture, the professor talks about society. He gives us some examples. First, the professor talks about the culture, that he says that culture is interactions with people, with other people. It's about sharing knowledge, beliefs, and respecting. Also, he says that he mentions one example about the origin of the people. For example, the people has a common language and they share some uses. Yes, other example could be, yeah, that's all.
Yes. Well, the minute is all, but you can continue if you want. Please, Raisa. Feel free to.
I
All right. Yeah, it's fine.
I-
Don't worry.
sorry.
Continue. Yeah, continue. Go on. Continue.
Yes, I don't know. Sorry, yeah. No.
No, okay, it's fine. Don't worry, Raisa. Thank you very much. Okay, there we are. Yeah, very good. Yes, the time is super short, right? It's just 1 minute. You're right. It's super short. That's what I told you yesterday. It's very important to be very selective into what topic we are going to include within our response, right? Because if we include everything, of course, the time is just going to evaporate. But if we are selective to the main points, then we can include what is important and relevant, right? Sergio, you came back. Wonderful. There you are. Okay.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi isn't working very well.
Okay, no, don't worry, Sergio. It's fine. It happens. Okay, so Lucia, we are practicing, by the way, Sergio, a second exercise. Okay, I'm sorry you are going to respond right now to the first one. Okay, I want to listen to your response. But now, Lucia, please go with this second exercise and start now.
Okay, in this lecture, we've been presenting on the fascinating topic of the society and how can these can be explained on big groups like a huge country or even the world and in the small groups. For the example of huge groups, the teacher explained how a culture can share behaviors, expectations, languages, and different types of communication. So that can be used in a simple thing like taking the shoes on a house. And that's a behavior that in many cultures is good seen, but in others, no. Otherwise, on the second example, we can see that culture share this type of behaviors and everything just in a class like ours, theirs. So that's the explanation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lucia. Okay, so before I give you both of you feedback for this second exercise, Sergio, you were able to listen, right, to the first lecture?
No, I
No, you
couldn't
weren't?
hear.
Okay, it's fine. So let's continue them. Don't worry, Sergio, because tomorrow again we are going to practice more for this section. So don't worry, you're going to have the chance to deliver your responses and to practice as well for the fourth task. Okay, don't worry. Okay, Lucia.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Sergio. Okay, so Lucia and Raisa, please. I'm going to give you some feedback. Well, Raisa, you know the response was very good actually. The way you summarize the topic, how you explain it with your words, it's awesome. So I don't have any complaint with regard to that. Of course, I think the only detail here would be to take care of the time, right? Because you didn't have time to include everything that you had planned to say. Now, as I told you yesterday, make sure to rewatch yesterday's class. Raisa, by the way, it's already available on YouTube. All right, you got the YouTube channel in the description of the WhatsApp group, right? So you can go there and rewatch whenever you want. And yesterday I said, right, two very important aspects to identify what topics to include in your response. And I told you, if the professor spends more time on certain points or topics, then you know that those are crucial and main points and ideas within the lecture. So include those ones. And secondly, if you recognize that a point is essential to the lecture, that is to say that without including that point or information, nobody will be able to understand what you're talking about, then include that topic and try to discard any other point or topic that is irrelevant to the discussion. That is to say that if you include it or not, it's not going to alter or vary if people understand or not the summary. Remember, the summary has always the objective of making people understand a long and complex topic in a very short and simple manner. So if you notice that a point is going to cause people to understand the summary, then include it. If you know that even if you don't include it, people are going to understand, then it's not necessary. Okay, so try to not to include it in your response, and then you're going to have time for all the main points. All right, but wonderful, Raisa. Very good response, by the way. Okay, and Lucia, as well, as you are used to, fantastic response with regard to pronunciation, with regard to grammar. It was excellent. You know, the only thing that I will hear comment would be when you said that taking some shoes off, it's good seeing. But nonetheless, remind that what you meant, I think, was good looking, right? When you say that luce bien es bien visto, good looking, that is the expression, not good seeing in that case. But with regard to the rest, it's wonderful, good looking, okay? But very good, Lucia. All right, wonderful. So now let's move on to the writing section. As I told you, today we're going to stop here with the practices for the fourth task. Don't worry, Sergio. Tomorrow, again, we're just going to practice for the writing and for the speaking section. But today, I want us to get into the writing section and to get a glance of how to perform on the first task, because I want us to be practicing tomorrow and next class as well. Okay, so let's get into that topic now. All right, so let's get into this. So we are changing right now from section to section. And to this point, we have just commented on the speaking section, but now we're going to get into the writing section. Okay, so let's listen. General aspects of this section. Of course, this section is designed to measure how well your writing is being, let's say, learned, and also how well you can apply it. That is to say, both in academic and daily context. That is to say, the English you're going to use in order to respond to the questions in this section must be both academic and also as well, you're going to have the chance to use daily and normal expressions in English, right? But try to always give it a professional and academic identity, because, you know, writing, whenever we write down in a scholar manner, remember that a scholar means erudito, right? whenever we write down in a scholar manner, any person that is going to read our document, our article, in this case, our essays, he is going to think, oh, this person is proficient in English, right? Because if we use a scholar, eruditos, a scholar expressions, expressiones de eruditos, then of course that gives the impression that we are very much proficient and understood in this language, right? So if you have the opportunity to include those fancy expressions, advanced expressions, complex expressions, please feel free to do it. It's tremendously important, okay, dear students? It's super, super important for you. Now, you're going to have two different tasks, dear students, in this writing section. The first one is going to be an integrated writing task, and the second one is going to be an independent writing task. Maybe these terms, these words sound very familiar to you, and you're going to discover that you are right when you associate these words with the speaking section, because the way that these tasks are going to be organized is super similar to the speaking section. You're going to see in a minute. But the integrated writing task is going to last for 20 minutes, all right? And the independent writing task is going to last for 30 minutes. In both cases, you're going to be writing down essays, okay? Your responses for this task are going to be essays. One essay for the integrated task and one essay for the independent task. That is to say, at the end of this 50 minutes, you have to write down two essays, one for the integrated question and one for the independent question, okay? That is what you have to do. In a general term and aspect, that is the only thing you have to do, to write down two different essays, one for the integrated task, one for the independent task. Now, 13, very important, dear students, if you're planning to take the IVT version, the one that you have to go to an in-person location to take the exam, the keywords that they are going to give you to write down your essay are going to be, let's say, organized, and they are going to have the configuration of American English. That is to say, the letters and the symbols in the American keyboard are located in two different positions when compared to the Spanish version, okay, or the Latin American version that we use here in Bolivia or in any country you are right now. So the point is that you're going to have to change in order to practice the configuration of your keyboard from Spanish to English, because as I say, the commas, the semicolons, the colons, the parentheses, the apostrophes, all the symbols and also the letters actually are located into different positions, okay? So please go to the settings of your computer and change your keyboard into English keyboard, American English keyboard, okay? And learn how to locate those symbols, dear students, how to make commas, how to make semicolons, because it's different, how to make parentheses, how to make apostrophes. That is going to be crucial for you to develop well on this particular topic and section, okay? So please do that, okay? It's super important for you to do it. This is going to be crucial for you, okay? Any question with regard to the general aspects of the section, dear students? Lucia, Raisa, Sergio? Any question here?
No, I think that everything is clear and gets clearer with the practice and the examples that you give us.
Wonderful. Raisa, any questions, Sergio?
Not yet.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Raisa. Sergio, any question here?
No, it's clear. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful, everywhere. Thank you, Sergio. Okay, so now let's move on to today's topic, okay? What we are going to be discussing today is the first task, because as I say, you're just gonna have two tasks in this section. First, integrated task, second, independent task. So let's get into the integrated task, which is the one that we're going to be discussing this week. So, integrated essay. Why do you think this is called integrated? Well, if you were reminding the second and the third task, and actually the fourth task of the speaking section, and somehow you were creating a connection between those terms and this one, you are right. This is integrated. Why? Because in this case, you are going to be receiving material from ETS, okay? And you're going to have to, let's say, take notes on those materials that ETS is going to give you. And then you're going to create a summary of those materials. And then that is going to be your response. That is to say, the essay you're going to write down is going to be a summary of materials that ETS is going to give you. For this essay, you don't need to rely on your own opinion, on your own knowledge and data in order to respond. As I say, avoid doing so. You need to be, again, like a journalist. That is the reason why I love the TOEFL exam, because it's super predictable, it's repetitive. And by repetition and let's say and systematization, you are able to perform very well basically on anything, right? So this is exactly the same this is exactly the same to what you were doing in the second, third, and fourth task of the speaking section. You're gonna receive two materials, all right? Two information sources. You're gonna take notes on that. You're going to create a summary, and that summary is going to be your essay. You're gonna write down an essay as a summary of the information sources you will receive from ETS. That is the only thing you have to do. Now, maybe you're wondering, what are those information sources? Again, ironically and funnily, these information sources are exactly the same ones that we were having until this point in the speaking section. In the first task, the first information source that you're going to receive is going to be a reading passage. It's going to be a reading passage that in this case is going to be a little bit longer, of course, because you're going to have 3 minutes to read a reading passage. And that reading passage is going to be the first material you will receive from ETS. It's going to be an information source about an academic topic, okay? This is not something new. This is exactly what we were doing in the speaking section as well, okay? So you're going to have 3 minutes to read a reading passage that is going to be about, as I say, an academic topic, all right? So you may take notes if you wish, of course, during these 3 minutes. For example, if you finish reading at the minute number 2 and you have 1 more minute to do something, well, my recommendation would be start writing down in your paper or on your paper, excuse me, what your summary is going to be of this particular material. That is to say, what points are you going to include in your summary or in your essay summarizing this information source, okay? Now, after you read this passage and after the 3 minutes are over, the computer is going to take you directly to the second information source. And what is that going to be? It's going to be a lecture. It's going to be a lecture on the same topic you were reading. That is to say, if the reading passage was about, let us say, I don't know, the French Revolution, then you're going to listen to a professor discussing that same topic, the French Revolution, in a lecture as the ones that we have been receiving until this point. Okay, so it's exactly the same. It's the same procedure. So nothing is going to change here. All right. So after you read this and you listen to this information source that is the listening item, you're just going to have, as I say, 20 minutes to write down an essay summarizing both materials. That is all you have to do. All right. In this case, of course, you're not speaking, but your response summarizing both materials is going to be what? Is going to be the essay. All right. So let's move on. You're going to have 20 minutes to write down this essay. By the way, something very important for you, dear students. You are, in this case, well, let me show you with the simulator here. Okay, let me show you how this is going to exactly look like on the day of the exam. Okay, so let me show you. Writing integrated essay, answer quiz mode. Okay, so let me show you. First thing you're going to receive instructions. We have seen all this. Now, super important, dear students. Let me show you this. There is a minimum quantity of words that you need to write down for this essay. You need to write down in your essay. Remember, you have 20 minutes to write down this essay, right? You need to write down at least 150 words. 225 words is very good. If you can write down more, excellent. But minimally, you need to write down 150 words, okay? That is what I wanted to tell you right from the beginning. Now, of course, I'm gonna recommend you later some websites for you to improve your typing. You need to check out how many words you are writing down, how many words you are writing down right now per minute. Because let's say if you're writing down just 3 minutes, or 3 words per minute, you're in trouble. We need to improve that. But if you're writing, I don't know, 10 words per minute, 15 words per minute, well, we're fine. We can improve that a little bit. Then you're going to be able to get this 150 words, yes or yes. But if you're able to write down more, it's also wonderful. Okay, so please try to improve on that part as well in your typing. How many words you are able to write down in 20 minutes, and especially how many words you are able to write down with these topics, right? That is academic English. So let's continue. So first thing you're going to receive, as I told you, is going to be a reading passage. Look at this. It's a reading passage just as the ones that we have received, right? In this case, of course, it is obvious that the reading passage is longer. Why? Because they also give you more time to read this. They're going to give you 3 minutes to read this reading passage, okay? So first you're going to receive this information source, okay? And as I say, they are going to give you 3 minutes in order to read this entire passage. Now, there's going to be a button that says next here, so that if you finish before the 3 minutes are over and you don't want to continue here, you can press this button, and that is going to take you directly to the second information source. Now, if you want to, as I said, take advantage of all the 3 minutes and the entireness of your time, if you finish before the 3 minutes are over, then start summarizing on your paper what points on this reading passage you are going to include in your essay later on. Okay, that will be my recommendation for you. But nonetheless, you press next, and then you're going to be transported to this second information source that, as I say, is going to be what? Is going to be a reading passage. Excuse me, it's going to be a listening item. That is to say, a professor on a lecture discussing a topic that is exactly the same one that you were listening before. In this case, for example, listen to it.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
Listen a little bit.
The Emperor Claudius is a fascinating figure. He was traditionally portrayed as a vicious fool in ancient history books. But some sources, like the novel I, Claudius, which is a great book by the way, some sources portray him as one of the strongest Roman emperors. I want to interrogate that idea today. He certainly did a lot of good for the empire, but perhaps the traditional account of Claudius's reign, emphasizing the weakness of the emperor as a leader, is closer to the historical truth than the popular new revisionist account. Was he really as innovative, fair, and wise as the textbook suggests? Claudius definitely did some good things in his reign, like build new aqueducts and a port for Rome. But the biggest innovation of his reign, his coming to power by paying off the army after the assassination.
Okay, there you are. So as you notice, the reading passage was about the Emperor Claudius, and now the listening item is a professor discussing exactly the same topic. That is to say, Claudius' reign, right? Now, after you listen to this, as you can see, is no more than 2 minutes. You're going to be taken directly to this menu, okay, that I want to show you because it's very important. What is the menu? The menu is the following one. You're going to have here a response box, okay? This is where you are going to write down your essay. Now, on the left side of your screen, you're going to have what? The same reading passage that you read before, okay? The one about the Emperor Claudius is going to be available for you again. During the entire 20 minutes, you can read this again anytime you want, okay? So, as I say, this is an advantage, it's a benefit that ETS gives you. The reading passage is going to be available for you on one side of your screen, okay? So you can read it whenever you want again. The reading passage, not the listening, by the way, just the reading passage, okay? So this is going to be available for you to read it again if you want. Now, this is going to be the reply box. As you can see, here is where you can write down your essay, right? Now, let me show you this. Very important. You are maybe used to find out that when you, for example, write down a word incorrectly, like this, for example, da. Maybe because you are used to write down with Word or with Grammarly, as I do, for example, maybe you are used to have a software telling you, hey, this word is incorrect, and it is highlighted with red, right? For you to go and check it out. Let me tell you, this is not going to happen on the exam. It happens to me now because I have Grammarly, okay? This is not going to be the case in your exam. The only thing you're going to have is a space to write down. This box that you can see here is a space for you to write down, but nothing, no software or computer is going to tell you, hey, here it's wrong. No, you are going to be the one responsible for knowing where, in what particular point you have corrected, excuse me, you have committed a mistake, you have written something incorrectly. So please, it's very important for you to know that you need to be careful to observe, okay, here at this point, I committed a mistake, then you check it out, and then you, of course, correct it, okay? This is not going to be happening in the exam, to have something telling you, hey, you made a mistake here, correct it, okay? Not going to happen. Now, second thing that I wanted to show you about this menu. As you can see here, it is a word counter, what we have below the reply box, and this is also going to be available for you on the exam. As you go about writing down your words, for example, that will travel many persons. As you can see, the word counter goes augmenting, right? Now I have 9 words, when in the past I had just 5. So you're going to be able to have an understanding of how many words you are writing every single moment. Now, if you don't want to know this, because for some people this is trouble, so they don't like this, there's going to be a button besides the word counter that will say height. Okay, so if you press that height, your word counter is going to be hidden. Okay, so if you want to, of course, return to the configuration which you were able to see this, you just press the button again, and the word counter is going to appear again. But you are able to hide it if you want, okay, and to take it back if you want as well by pressing the same button. Okay, so just in case you know, you are going to be able to know how many words you are writing. Now, last thing, at some point or at some in some place on your screen, there is going to be the chance to have 2 buttons, copy and paste. Although maybe you don't believe it, there's going to be a button that says copy and another one that says paste. Okay, so you are literally capable of doing this. You can do this. You can press copy. You go here to the reply box and you paste. You can do that. Okay, by the way, you can do that. Now, is that advisable? Of course not. Is that recommendable? Of course not. The reviewer is going to notice if you are just copying and pasting in order to meet the quantity of words. Okay, don't do it. The only legitimate use, okay, the only legal use of this system is that if you want to make a quotation, a citación, una citación of a specific part of this reading passage, then go for it, okay? Copy and paste, just because you want to make a quotation, citar algo. But if you're not going to do that, don't bother yourself in using that, because it's going to just lower your score. If everything you are mentioning here in your essay, it's just copy, right? And paste it. So my recommendation, don't use it very much. Okay, it's just for quotations, right? Very important. So that's it. That is the menu. Okay, is there any question with the menu, dear students? Anything that I can clarify here? Lucia, Sergio, Raisa?
In this part, we also have to maintain ourselves on the academic topic and not put any opinion, right?
Yes, exactly. In this task, for the integrated task, you just have to summarize. I'm going to show you, don't worry right now, on structure, a template. So please, my recommendation is, as I say, don't include your opinion, external information, either, anything. Okay, just summarize. Any other questions, dear students? Raisa, Sergio? No questions. Okay, wonderful.
One question.
Yeah, please, Raisa.
What happens if we don't write enough words? The 200 words, I think.
Yeah, 150 is the minimum, and if you write more, it's fine. But yes. So what happens? Very good question, Raisa. Very good question. What happens? If you don't meet the minimum quantity of words, of course, that shows that you don't have very much proficiency in the language. Although it's tricky, I know, because for some people, what is difficult is just to type. Some people are not good at typing, and that is all. It's not that they don't know how to write, but just that they are not good at typing. So yes, that is going to lower your score. If you're not able to write down 150 words at least, that is going to lower your score. So my recommendation is start practicing very much for the typing. If you identify that you are not going to be able to write down 150 words at least, and always, of course, think about writing down more, right? 200, 250, that will be great, because that also shows that you are very good at this, right? So what is going to happen is going to be lower your score, but you can improve it, of course, by good grammar, etc. But the ideal thing would be to write down at least 150 words, okay? Is that fine, Raisa?
Okay, thanks.
All right, wonderful. Okay, Sergio, any question? Okay, wonderful. So now, what am I going to do right now? I want to show you the template, okay? Okay, no, actually, we're going to stop here. Tomorrow, the first thing we're going to do, okay, no, let me do it right now. Don't worry. Okay, right now, because I think that tomorrow I just want us to practice, okay? So right now, let me show you the flow, dear students. What is going to happen tomorrow? Tomorrow, we're going to practice, but now I want to show you how to write down the essay, because maybe you're wondering, how should I write down this? What should I include? Let me show you. Look, go to your WhatsApp group. I am sending right now a a document to the WhatsApp group that says writing 1/10 upgraded. Download this document, please. Open it because I want you to use it with me for practicing. There inside, you're going to find what? The template you need to follow in order to write down your essay. This is a template. Open the document. You're going to find this. This is the template you need to follow. What is your essay going to consist about? 2 parts, introduction and body. Those are the only 2 parts that your essay is going to have, introduction and body, okay? Now, here we have some phrases, and you're going to understand this way better by what? By this example, because if you go, if you scroll down a little bit, I wrote an essay following a template for you to understand it better. So let me show you, before we get into this essay, what the topics are for this particular exam. So let me show you. The reading passage that I used in order to write down my essay there as an illustration is this one. Okay, I'm gonna paste it to the chat box right now, and I'm gonna read it right now. Okay, I'm gonna try to summarize it a little bit because we're running out of time. But the point is that I want us to read it as very clearly, very succinctly, very generally, and then we're going to listen to the topic. Okay, let's listen to this, or let's read together. Okay, I'm gonna read in aloud, and you follow. The Emperor Claudius of Rome ruled an empire spanning the 3 continents between 41 and 54 CE. His reign was of massive importance to the history of ancient Europe, of the ancient European civilization. In fact, the emperor was among the most innovative, fair, and wise in all Roman history. Okay, I'm going to read until this point, and now I'm going to move on to this. Claudius' reign was important for its major innovations. He conquered the island of Britain and incorporated it into the Roman Empire. He also built a new harbor for Rome and oversaw the construction of several new aqueducts. He created laws to protect the rights of the slaves and expand Roman citizenship to new people. Okay, all of these facts suggest that he was a gifted ruler and with a strong judgment, despite what may be found in histories written by his detractors. Okay, now here, however, illustrating his wisdom, instead of entrusting high bureaucratic positions to senators, he preferred to give them to trustworthy slaves and former slaves, freedmen, whom he felt were more loyal to him. They were efficiently creating a bureaucratic framework for all future emperors. Claudius should be praised for giving political opportunities to new groups of people, such as former slaves and even to women of the imperial household, including his wives. Okay, so this is the reading passage. If you notice, they are speaking positively of Claudius, right? They are saying wonders about Claudius. Claudius was one of the best emperors. Now, okay, so now let's listen to what the listening passage says about Claudius. You're going to notice that this passage is going to contradict what the reading passage says about Claudius. And I want you to understand, dear students, this is going to be the case for all the material in this task. The listening item is always going to contradict the reading passage. In this case, for example, the reading passage talked about how good was Claudius, right? And you're going to notice that the lecture is going to say how bad was Claudius. It's going to be in opposition to the reading passage. And this is going to be repeated in all the exercises we're going to continue practicing from now on. And also in the exam, the listening item is going to contradict the reading passage, okay? But now let's listen.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
The Emperor Claudius is a fascinating figure. He was traditionally portrayed as a vicious fool in ancient history books. But some sources, like the novel I, Claudius, which is a great book, by the way, some sources portray him as one of the strongest Roman emperors. I want to interrogate that idea today. He certainly did a lot of good for the empire, but perhaps the traditional account of Claudius's reign, emphasizing the weakness of the emperor as a leader, is closer to the historical truth than the popular new revisionist account. Was he really as innovative, fair, and wise as the textbook suggests? Claudius definitely did some good things in his reign, like build new aqueducts and a port for Rome. But the biggest innovation of his reign, his coming to power by paying off the army after the assassination of the previous emperor, well, that would prove to be a dangerous precedent for the Roman Empire. It was a terrible precedent, in fact, and later, people doing the same things as Claudius would plunge Rome into civil war. As for Claudius's fairness, he might have created laws supporting the rights of slaves and expanding Roman citizenship. But
He was a notoriously bad judge, who was accused of making legal decisions without even listening to both sides of the case. He loved violent gladiatorial games, and had thousands of men executed simply for the amusement of the Roman people. He even conquered Britain to win prestige, destroying its indigenous peoples. So I wouldn't exactly call this very fair behavior. The text also mentions his wisdom, but, well, it's true that Claudius favored people like slaves and former slaves, but they were notorious for being corrupt. Many of them amassed giant personal fortunes at the expense of the Roman people and were subject to bribery. His wives were also famous for being murderous and disloyal. In fact, his last wife poisoned him with a mushroom, and her son would go on to become the Emperor Nero, who was one of the worst rulers of world history. Claudius deserves at least some blame for the disasters of his reign, since someone as irresponsible as Nero should have never been made his heir. I mean, it wasn't very wise to choose him for a successor, was it?
Summarize the points made.
Okay, there you are. So now that we have reviewed all the information sources, let's get into the template and how to write out an essay with that template, okay? So look at the template, dear students. You have, as I said, two different parts, introduction and body. So what are you going to do in your introduction? You're going to summarize very briefly what the reading passage was about, and you are going to contrast, van a contrastar, that summary or that information of the reading passage with what the listening passage said. And that is going to be an exercise that you're going to be repeating one after the other during the entire essay. Why? Because the only thing you have to do in this case is to summarize both materials, but you're going to always contrast them. That is to say, van a contrastar the reading passage with the listening passage. Reading passage with the listening passage. This reading passage said this, but the listening passage said this instead. Look at this. For example, it says, the reading extract leads up with, and nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that. And now let me show you how I apply that into the essay I wrote for the exercises that we saw, okay? For example, it says, the reading extract leads off with the idea that Claudius was not a terrible emperor for the Roman Empire, and he contributed with illustrious works for his people. This is a summary of the reading passage, right? Basically, what it's saying is that he was a good emperor, right? Now, I'm going to contrast this super brief summary of the reading passage with what the listening passage said. Nonetheless, sin embargo, I am contrasting both materials right now, right? Nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that this optimistic understanding of Claudius' authority and deeds is inaccurate, right? Because the listening passage basically dedicated to say that everything the reading passage said was false and inaccurate, right? So I am contrasting that, estoy contrastando. I am putting this here, right? The reading passage said this positively about Claudius, and I contrast that right after I finish with the first reading passage with what the listening passage said. In the lecture, it is said this optimistic understanding of Claudius is inaccurate, okay? This is the introduction. After you finish this, you move on to include a transition phrase. As you did in the speaking section, if you remember, right, in the first speaking section, I am going to proceed to expose both views. Why? Because we are going to be a little bit more detailed now in the rest of your essay about how this comparison of these two materials is taking place. How are they contradicting each other, okay? But in the introduction, as you can see, the only thing you have to do is to write down this. The reading extract leads up with, and then you mention the summary of the reading passage, and you contrast that with, nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that, and you contrast with what the reading passage, what the listening item said. And then you offer a transition phrase that connects your introduction with your body. So that, for example, I am going to proceed to expose both views, or I am going to detail both approaches, or I am going to analyze both ideas. Whatever serves, and it's helpful for us to transition it from the introduction to the body, okay? And remember that you always include here your column, 2 points, all right? Very important. Any question about the introduction, guys? Lucia, Raisa, Sergio? Is this clear?
I think that everything is very clear.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Lucia. What about you, Raisa, Sergio? Questions about this?
It's clear.
Okay, thank you.
It's clear, thanks.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Okay, now let's move on to the body. What are you going to do in the body? you're going to do exactly the same. But now you're going to be a little bit more detailed. Van a ser más detallistas. You're going to begin contrasting what the reading passage said with what the listening item said. Let me show you. First paragraph. Firstly, in the reading passage, it explained that, and then nevertheless, sin embargo, in the listening presentation, it is noted that, and look at how I did it. Firstly, in the reading passage, it explained that Claudius was very innovative. That is to say, he came out with remarkable works and reforms to the Roman Empire. Why am I writing down this? Because that is what the reading passage said, right? About Claudius. That is the first thing they said, that Claudius was innovative, right? He did works, reforms to the Roman Empire. Now, after I finish my summary, super brief summary, I contrast that with what the listening item said against that. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that the only reformation and creative modification Claudius postulated in the Roman Empire was treason. Namely, he was able to corrupt the Roman armies and to use them for his benefits. Why do I write this? Because that is what the listening passage said, right? He basically consumed the empire in treason. Everybody was treacherous. People were, he was taking advantage of the armies in order to dominate people. So I am contrasting, right? What the reading passage said with what the listening passage said. No more than that, dear students. Okay, and notice that I am using the phrases here. Firstly, in the reading passage, it explained that. Look at it. Firstly, in the reading passage, it explained that, and I continue, right? Claudius was very innovative. And here, nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that, I am contrasting, estoy contrastando. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that the only reformation he did was treason, right? Contrasting. That is the first paragraph. Now you move on to the second. Secondly, in the reading excerpt, by the way, means passage is the same, it's a synonym. It's pointed out that, and then the listening passage claims notwithstanding. So what are you going to do in the second paragraph? Well, you're going to mention the second argument that the reading passage gave, and you're going to contrast that argument with the second argument that the listening passage said, that is to say, against the reading passage. Secondly, in the reading excerpt, it is pointed out that Claudius was a stray ruler and judge for his people. Further, he executed justice and collaboration to slaves and facilitated the acquirement of Roman citizenship. Now, this is what the reading passage said, but now you contrast that with what the listening passage said. The listening passage claims, notwithstanding el pasaje de escucha clama, sin embargo, that Claudius was not indeed a righteous ruler. Likewise, he is said to have loved violence and the elimination of indigenous weak populations. As you can see, contrasting, no more than that. What the reading passage said positively in favor of Claudius with what the listening passage says against Claudius. Finally, you don't have conclusions here. The last thing you do is to continue summarizing and contrasting the arguments. There is no conclusion, by the way. It's not necessary to include a conclusion here. Finally, in the reading selection, it is stated that, and on the other hand, por otra mano, in the presentation, it's mentioned that. So finally, in the reading selection, it is stated that Claudius was prone to recognize the value of diversity in his kingdom. He disposed political charges to own the slaves and women, a practice not very common in those times, right? This is what the reading passage said about Claudius, the last thing they said. And I contrast that with what? On the other hand, in the presentation, it is mentioned that his decisions were not appropriate and turned out to be harmful. The slaves he charged with power ended up being corrupt, and his wives were abominable. To top it off, his legacy brought us one of the worst rulers in human history, namely Nero. So as you can see, I am contrasting the reading passage, what it said in favor of Claudius, with what the listening passage said against Claudius. Am I giving my opinion here? Never. I never give my opinion. Am I adding anything external? Nothing. I'm not adding anything that I know about Claudius. No, I'm just contrasting what the reading passage said with what the listening passage said. And that is the exercise you have to do one time and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until you finalize with all the reasons mentioned in the reading passage and in the listening passage. Is there any question? You see, Raisa Sergio, about this?
No, for me, it's very clear because you are giving us a template and the structure of the answer, so it's very clear for me.
Wonderful. Great, Lucia. What about you, Raisa? Is this fine?
Yes, for me it's fine. I think we need to practice.
Yeah, certainly. Tomorrow we're going to do it. Don't worry. Sergio, any question here?
No, the structure is very clear.
Wonderful. Very good. Thank you very much, Sergio. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to practice. Try to memorize this. Okay, it's important for you to memorize it. It's there on the WhatsApp group. Memorize it, know it. Tomorrow, everything we're going to do is practicing for this and for the speaking section. Okay, so if you have no more questions, we're going to stop the class here. Please, before you go, I'm going to take your assistance and help me with the traditional poll. You know that you help me a lot. Okay, feeling that positively. So there you have the structure, the poll. Please look at your screen and help me with that. And now I'm going to take your assistance. Okay. So where is it? Here. Second here. Okay, here. Okay, wonderful. We're gonna take one more poll. Today is Wednesday, and every Wednesday we always take 2 polls, if you remind. So please help me with this order one. Okay, I'm sorry for bothering. It's just the company that wants us to take 2 polls. Okay, on Wednesdays. So please look at your screen again. Help me with a second poll. All right. Okay, so now please. Is here Guzman Raiza Bolivia?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Raiza. What about Lucia Aguirre?
Present.
Thank you very much, Lucia. And finally, Heredia Sergio Andres.
Present.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry. All right, there you are. So, dear students, thank you very much for your presence and for your responses. It's been wonderful to be with you. Tomorrow, we're going to practice, okay? So please change your keyword into American English and see you tomorrow for practicing this. It's going to be great, okay? Have a wonderful night. See you later.
Thank you, Carlos. See you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you,
very
Raisa. Thank you,
much.
Sergio. Bye-bye. See you.
Oh.